Welcome back to another video, and today we got our Week 15 college football top 25 rankings. The regular season is officially over, so all of these teams have finished their 12-game schedules. We're into conference championship week, so we're going to be predicting pretty much every important one. We got the Sun Belt predictions coming in here, the American, and then obviously the Power 4 ones as well. So that is what you can expect in this video, and just to talk around the country about possible playoff scenarios, possible just chaos all around. We're going to break that all down, as well as give you our top 25 rankings, obviously. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Obviously, some of these teams near the bottom aren't going to be too important to talk about, so we'll kind of go a little quickly through these. Number 25, I'm going to go with Missouri. Like, they've been in and out of the top 25 for the whole season. They've been anywhere from, it feels like 18 to 25 all year, maybe in and out of the rankings, like I said a few times. I don't know. You could argue a lot of teams here. I actually didn't rank North Texas. I thought about it, but to be fair, they're 11-1. They don't really have very many good wins. I guess they've been playing very well in the American, but yeah, maybe you could argue they should be ranked. But honestly, if you said Missouri and North Texas were playing, I'd probably pick Missouri to win. That's just the reality. I know people aren't going to like that, but it is the truth if we're being honest with ourselves. North Texas, no shade to them. They're a really good team. They're right here as well. Same thing with Iowa, but Iowa 8-4 as well. Both these teams, Missouri doesn't really have a big win. I apologize for spending a little too much time about Missouri, but they're going to come in at 25. Number 24, I'm going to go Tennessee. They're going to move down 5. I actually thought they would win this game against Vandy, but no. Vandy shows out. I guess they make their playoff case. I don't really know. I don't see it. The committee, I think, ranked them at 14, so they're probably not going to get in. There's almost no way for them to get in. But Vandy did look really good in this game against Tennessee. Tennessee, to think that they were in the playoff race for quite a while until that Oklahoma game. They were right there. They almost beat Georgia early in the season. They did kind of get blown out against Bama, but like I said, if they win that OU game, there's a chance that Vandy game could have just knocked them out of the playoffs, but ultimately they did lose to OU. They lose to Vandy. They finished the season 8-4. I think if you told a Tennessee fan that they would finish at 8-4, that would kind of be what they expected coming into the season. So it's not too crazy there. They got their hopes up for a little bit, so maybe that hurts a little bit more. Houston, I'll go at 23. Same thing with kind of Missouri. Houston's been just kind of in and out of the rankings here in these bottom 5 spots. But they're here nonetheless. I actually predicted them to lose against Baylor. They ended up winning. They finished 9-3 in the Big 12. Pretty good record here. Houston's been a solid team all season. I'll go ahead. They have a really nice win against Arizona. Arizona looks like a really good team. And Arizona State, matter of fact. So 2 pretty solid wins there in the Big 12. They do have 2 kind of bad losses, though. I don't know. Houston's a pretty good team. I'll go with them at 23. Georgia Tech is actually going to move up 1, believe it or not, after losing back-to-back games. I don't know. They really hung around with Georgia. Obviously, it's a rivalry game, so it's going to be close. But Georgia was looking really good. I was giving so much praise to them. I was saying they're the best team in the SEC. They could potentially win the national title if it's not Ohio State or Indiana. I said Georgia would probably be that next team. Maybe even, I think I might have said Georgia may be the team I'd trust second, even over Indiana, just because Kirby Smart's done it before. But then, and Pitt put up 42 points against the Georgia Tech defense, and for Georgia Tech to come back after that, hold Georgia to 16, I thought was really impressive. So I actually move them up a spot, which is very rare, even after they're losing. I still think they're a top 25 team. Haynes King is a really good QB, one of the best in the country, one of the most impactful and important players in the country. So I'll give props to Georgia Tech. They're obviously not going to be playing in not in the Big 12, in the ACC championship game because they did lose to Pitt, but they were pretty much leading this conference the whole way through. But kind of a catastrophic finish to this season, losing 3 of their last 4. That really hurt them. So they're going to be at 22. Number 21 is going to be James Madison, moving up 5. Now here's the thing with James Madison. They're not in a particularly great spot, but they're also not in a terrible spot. So the committee, I believe, ranked them at 25 in the latest rankings, if I'm not mistaken. But they were in there finally. I feel like it was long overdue. They've been in mine for a while. They're 11-1. They've really not had a close game besides Washington State, but throughout their conference play, they haven't really had a close game. They did lose to a Louisville team on the road, but it was honestly kind of close. And Louisville, not a terrible team. Louisville's beaten good teams. Louisville beat Miami this season. I think, did Louisville beat Georgia? No, not Georgia. I don't know why I said that. No, Virginia beat Louisville, but Louisville is right there with them. Louisville's been in the rankings for a lot of this season, so that's not necessarily a bad loss, especially as James Madison, a Group of 5 team. James Madison's really solid. Like I said, just blowing out the Sun Belt. They got a game coming up against Troy, and they're actually heavy favorites in this one. I'd be shocked if they don't win. I think James Madison's going. Obviously, they're going to need to win here. Troy's not going to get into the field. The scenario that James Madison does get in, well, you take the American Conference champion, which is going to be either Tulane or North Texas. The winner of that is going to be in, because both those teams right now, as it stands, are ranked ahead of James Madison. So that would mean the winner of that game, that's essentially a playing game. What James Madison is going to need, it's very simple. They're going to need to win their conference, and they're going to need Duke to beat Virginia for the ACC, because if Duke wins the conference, I'm sorry, an 8-5, a 5-loss team getting in over a 1-loss James Madison, I don't see that. So I think James Madison would get in if Duke were to win the ACC, which Virginia's only favored by 3.5. We'll get to that game in a little bit, but that's a huge game. I think James Madison, believe it or not, does have a real chance. There's a real chance we get 2 Group of 5 teams into the playoff, which would be just insane. I got James Madison here at 21, and I do think they beat Troy. So as long as Duke, as long as Duke takes care of Virginia for them on Saturday night, could potentially happen. So we will see what transpires there. Number 20 is going to be that other team we were just talking about, Tulane. Moving up 4 spots. They're 10-2 right now. They have kind of a tough loss there to UTSA, but besides that, they got a road win against Memphis. That's really good. East Carolina's a solid team. They have a win over Duke. They honestly, like, Tulane, if Duke ends up winning the ACC, Tulane would be ahead of them. So Tulane has a chance to get in as the 11 seed. It looks like for Tulane, as long as they beat North Texas, though, they will get in, because like I said, they're ranked ahead of James Madison. Same thing with North Texas, though. Whoever wins this game for the American is going to be at the very least the 12 seed, potentially the 11 seed. If Duke were to win the ACC, that would put James Madison as the 12. So this is essentially a playing game, and all eyes are going to be on this on Friday night. It's a huge game. I can't wait for it. North Texas actually favored by 2.5 in that game. I'm kind of shocked to see that. Tulane's beaten Northwestern, who's looked really good, really solid at times. They got a good defense, good run game. They beat Duke, who is in the ACC championship right now. They played Ole Miss. Now, granted, they did lose. They did get blown out, but it was on the road. Ole Miss is a really good team. They're a playoff team. Like, they're going to be in the playoffs. They have a win over East Carolina, Memphis. Those are all solid wins, and they've looked really dominant in conference play as well. I'm shocked that North Texas is favored in this one. I know they're 11-1, and North Texas has been really solid. Besides their loss to South Florida, they've just dominated every other team in the American. Honestly, even more so than Tulane has. But I think Tulane's more battle-tested. I think they got it. Their coach, I do worry their coach took the job at Florida, so will that create a distraction for the team? He is going to continue to coach. We'll get to the Lane Kiffin situation when we talk to Ole Miss. Tulane's coach going to Florida, but he's going to continue to coach here, at least for the conference championship game. I'd probably expect him, if he does win, to go ahead and go coach in the playoffs. I don't know why that wouldn't be the case. That's, it's obviously different with Lane Kiffin. I think it's a good thing. Let him ride it out with Tulane. If they get into the playoffs, let them finish it. I think that's fair. And like I said, I think Tulane's more battle tested. They played better teams, in my opinion. They've had a harder schedule. So them being 10-2, North Texas being 11-1 doesn't really bother me. I think Tulane gets it done. I think it's a very close game. I do think Tulane wins. I think it's going to be a high-scoring, very fun game. Friday night, whatever you're doing, tune into this game. Like I said, it's essentially a play-in game for the playoffs. It's going to be a high-scoring one. It's going to be a fun one. 2 ranked teams here in the American. I think Tulane gets it done, even with North Texas being favored. That's a huge game, though. Arizona, welcome to the rankings. They were in the top 25 of the committee's rankings last week. Obviously, last week I had to pre-record, so it was all messed up, but Arizona is going to be in the rankings here. They're 9-3. They have some pretty nice wins. A road win against Cincinnati, a road win against Arizona State. I've had them ranked at points in the season. And their only losses are early to Iowa State when they were really good. BYU, a close loss, and a close road loss to Houston. BYU, Houston, both teams ranked. Iowa State was ranked at the time they played them, I believe. And like I said, they have a win over Cincinnati, win over Arizona State. Both those games on the road. They've had some very tough road games here in the Big 12, and they finished with a 9-3 record, so good on Arizona to get into this position here. Obviously nowhere near the playoffs, but 9-3 in the Big 12, that's pretty solid, so they're going to be in the top 25. Michigan's going to drop down 3 after losing to Ohio State. Ohio State finally takes care of business with Michigan. They get over those demons, those Michigan demons. They finally win. And honestly, Michigan just didn't look good, right? Like Ohio State, they turned them over really early in the game. They got up 6-0, kicked 2 field goals, and after that, Michigan just couldn't really do much. I think they had I want to say 20 something yards in the second half. Bryce Underwood threw for 60 yards on the game. He was 9 for 19, 8 for 19 with 60 yards. He was absolutely abysmal. You could chalk it up to, well, Michigan, Justice Haynes was out, Jordan Marshall left the game. He did come back later on, but and he did start out the game with a really nice run. I was getting scared as an Ohio State fan. I was like, when Sane threw the pick, I was like, don't tell me this is about to happen again. Michigan Stadium was a very good environment. Obviously, it always is. But I was like, no way this is about to happen again. But after that, Ohio State, there was just no chance for Michigan. It was pretty crazy the way that Ohio State just dominated this game. I predicted it to be 27-17, not because I was lower on Ohio State, not because I was higher on Michigan, just due to the fact that it was in the Big House. It's a rivalry game, and they've won the past 4 years. I thought it would be a little bit closer, but Ohio State just dominated. They look ridiculous. We'll get to how they looked in that game, but really, I mean, Michigan just got out physical on the line of scrimmage. That's how they've won the game the past 4 years. They've dominated the lines of scrimmage. They've got some big run plays, kept Ohio State's offense off the field, and they couldn't do any of those things in this one. So Ohio State gets the win, finally snaps the streak. And yeah, I mean, I did expect Ohio State to win. They were the much better team. They were the much superior team. But in my opinion, Michigan is actually in a pretty good spot. I'm not sure what the future with Sharon Moore holds. Maybe they move on from him. I think they'll probably keep him at least for next season, see what happens next season. But this is a very young team. They have 6 freshmen on offense. They've got a big, bright future ahead of them. I think they're going to be just fine. 9-3 this season. Obviously not bad. I mean, they didn't really get a good win. All 3 teams they played, they kind of got dominated in. But to be fair, 2 of those were on the road, and the other one was against the number 1 team in the country. So I think Michigan's going to be fine in the future. They like I said, very young team. I think they're going to be all right. Number 17 is going to be Virginia. They're 10-2, folks. This is the team that the ACC is hoping gets in. Now, there is a chance there's another ACC team that gets in. We'll get to that in Miami when we get to that. But here we go. Virginia gets the rematch with Duke. We saw this game, 2 or 3 weeks ago? Very recently, and Virginia went into Duke and won by 17 points. It was not a close game. I mean, Duke had a fumble touchdown recovery for one of their 2 touchdowns. The other one just kind of happened. Virginia dominated this game in Durham. It was not even close. The line in this one is surprisingly low. I thought it'd be much higher for Virginia just because we saw this game so recently, and Virginia just absolutely demolished them. Granted, it is hard to beat a team twice, but Duke is not this superior team. Duke is 7-5. I'm not really sure how Duke got into this game. It was just some crazy tiebreakers. It was down to the 5th tiebreaker they used, and Duke ended up getting in. It's crazy that Duke has a chance to make this chaos scenario, because if Duke does win, I think the ACC is praying Virginia wins this game, because if Duke wins, there's a chance that Tulane and James Madison both get in instead of a single ACC team. That would be maybe the nail in the coffin for the ACC that's already struggling. And yeah, I mean, it would just be really bad, in all honesty, for the ACC if Virginia were to win this game. Like I said, I'm so surprised how close this line is in this game. I think Virginia covers. I do think it's going to be closer just because it's a conference championship game. These 2 teams have played each other so recently. So I think Virginia maybe scores a little bit less. Maybe Duke scores 1 more touchdown. I got 30-24, but I still do believe Virginia covers pretty easily here, honestly. They're favored by 3.5. I could see them winning by 10 plus, in all honesty. I'm kind of being generous to Duke. I just think it will be close. Just, based off the fact, they literally just played. Duke's going to have seen them. I think they're going to do better the second time around, but I still do expect Virginia to win. Maybe if Duke can turn them over, maybe if they can get their quarterback, the receivers going, maybe if they can establish a run game. They weren't able to do that the first time around. If they can get that going, that'll open up the passing game. And maybe if they can force Chandler Morris to throw maybe a pick or 2. He does tend to, just kind of throw the ball up there. He's one of those type of QBs, but I still do think Virginia is the much better team. They're 10-2 compared to Duke 7-5. It's just pretty simple to me. So I do think Virginia wins, but I think it's going to be closer than it was the last time. USC is going to come in at 16 after their win against UCLA. We actually didn't talk about their game against Oregon. just because last week I had to pre-record. So that was kind of the big game outcome that I missed last week. Oregon does take care of business 42-27. USC was kind of in it for a little, but ultimately they fell short. They had their playoff hopes alive if they won that game. But USC, this is a very promising season. Lincoln Riley, I think he's building something good here. I mean, man, if USC didn't lose that game to Illinois, they could potentially be in playoff talks with the 10-2 record, wins over Michigan, Iowa. Those would both look really good. And then their only losses being to Notre Dame and Oregon on the road. Like, there's a chance USC could be in those playoff talks if they didn't drop that game to Illinois, who really didn't close the season very well. Illinois just lost like Wisconsin. That's not a good look. Wisconsin's been horrible all season. So, yeah, USC does kind of fall short, but 9-3, not bad at all. Number 15, this is kind of where we get to the real playoff talks. So number 15 for me is going to be Utah. I think the committee agreed. Yeah, they put Utah at, and they're moving down 3 for me. Nothing necessarily that Utah did, if I'm being honest. It's just the fact that, like, you know, you look at what these other teams did. Miami just blew out, just took care of business the past 2 weeks, blowing out teams. BYU has 1 loss, so they're not really in the conversation. And then Vandy just blew out Tennessee, a team who was ranked. And then Texas just beat Texas A&M. Like, these are just better wins than what Utah's doing. Utah kind of had a struggle game against Kansas State, and then did end up winning on the road against Kansas by 10 points. But neither of those games were as impressive as what all these other teams ahead of them did. So Utah, I kind of said this. I've been saying this for the past few weeks. I just don't see the path. Like, even when they were up towards the 12-13 range, I was saying that's probably their ceiling. They don't have the games on their schedule to get up into that conversation. So Utah, you know, maybe this is Kyle Whittingham's last year. That would be very sad. He is one of the better coaches in the country. But Utah 10-2. I mean, there's not much more that they can do. They lost to the 2 best teams in the Big 12. If they won that BYU game, they'd be in the Big 12 championship right now. And I honestly think they may have a better chance against Texas Tech than BYU does. We'll get to that. But Utah, you know, they're very good analytically, but ultimately just don't have enough. And maybe they're just good analytically because besides their 2 losses, look at the amount of points they put up. Like, it's been like almost 40-plus every game. So Utah 10-2, but like I said, they don't really have a chance compared to the rest of these teams. This next team, I don't think they really have a chance either, but they're a little bit more interesting. Vandy's going to stay put where they're at. They go into Knoxville, get a dominating win. Diego Pavia looks really good. There's a chance he's one of the Heisman finalists, so maybe that gives them some noise here for that last playoff spot, but honestly, I don't really see it. They have the loss to Texas, who's also kind of getting a little bit of buzz. Now, Texas does have 3 losses, so maybe that's the difference maker, you know, in that conversation. But then again, like, Texas beat Vandy, and it was 34-31, but that was essentially a dominating win. Like, Texas was in control of that the whole way through. Vandy also lost to Bama, and besides that, I mean, Tennessee's probably their best win. Like, maybe Missouri. Like, Vandy doesn't really have that great of a win besides Tennessee, and I think Texas has just the better resume. Even with 1 extra loss, Texas also has the head-to-head. But, you know, if Pavia is a Heisman finalist, that would be a great story. I mean, imagine a Vandy guy, a Vandy QB in the 2025 season is a Heisman finalist. I mean, would you ever imagine that? Diego Pavia has just rejuvenated this program. Not to mention, Vandy's doing very well for themselves in basketball as well. So Vandy is in a great spot right now for athletics, but I don't think they get into the playoffs, sadly, as much as fun as the story has been. Number 13 is where I'm going to put Texas. I just don't think Texas has enough, honestly. Like, they did what they needed to do. They beat Texas A&M 27-17. They kind of dominated that game. Recently, Texas has looked a lot better. Like, Arch has been playing a lot better this past season. We'll see what happens. I'd assume he comes back to Texas. Like, you know, I don't see him, like, transferring any of that. I'd assume he stays at Texas. Is he drafted? I'm not even sure if he's draft eligible. I thought he was. I think this is his 3rd year, I want to say. That sounds right. I'd assume he comes back. Like, his draft stock's not crazy, even if this is his 3rd year. So I'd assume he does come back. I think Texas is going to have a really good team next year. The defense was kind of the strong suit early in the season, but recently, I mean, look at the amount of points they've been getting up. 38, 34, or 31, 35, 37. Now, they did look really good against A&M. I'll give them that. And Sarkisian's trying to make a case for them, but honestly, like, you guys, Don't have an overtime win against Kentucky. Don't have an overtime win against Mississippi State. Don't lose to Florida. Like, you had the opportunities right there ahead of you. Maybe if they beat Georgia, they'd be in the playoffs right now at 10-2. If they had any of those losses, if they won, especially that Florida loss, if they just win that Florida game, if they just take care of business, do what they're supposed to do, then they're in the playoffs at 10-2 with only losses to Ohio State and Georgia on the road. Those are both top, like, 3 teams. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, Texas kind of put themselves in this situation, unfortunately. And maybe there's a little bit of life just because they did beat A&M, but the committee put them at 13 as well, already behind Miami. And that's kind of the nail in the coffin because Miami, Texas, neither of them play a game. So, the fact that they're already behind Miami, it's not great for them. So, I don't think Texas has a real chance, but, like, maybe there's a long shot. But, Miami's already ahead of them, and neither of these teams have any more left to do. Miami is going to be my number 12 team, and Miami does have some life, folks. Miami is, right now, the first team out of the playoffs. Technically, it's BYU, but if BYU does lose to Texas Tech, I'd assume Miami jumps them. So, now, obviously, if BYU wins the Big 12 championship, and we'll get to that, Miami has no chance, and that makes it very interesting on the committee to see who they end up leaving out. Who could it be? Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Alabama. Those are kind of the 2 lost teams that are in right now. That would be insane if BYU were to win that game. I think that's the committee's worst nightmare because then they have to make a decision. But also, like, what if Alabama... I think this could also be an interesting scenario. What if BYU loses? That puts Miami at 11, so they would be the first team out. And then what if Alabama wins the SEC championship game? They jumped Alabama ahead of Notre Dame. Very interesting decision. I'll get to that. But if Alabama wins the SEC championship game, I can't imagine they fault Georgia 7 spots and put them behind Notre Dame. So that would then leave the conversation to Notre Dame and Miami for that last spot. And Miami did beat Notre Dame. Now, how will they value that? Who knows? They're going to have the same record. Miami's going to have the head-to-head. And honestly, like, Notre Dame doesn't have a great resume. Miami may have the better resume and the head-to-head, and they might still end up going with Notre Dame. So that would be a ridiculous scenario. Miami's done what they needed to do. The past 4 weeks, they've blown out teams. And Miami, if they do get left out, it's kind of the same thing with Texas. Just win one of those games, either Louisville or SMU. Just win one of them. They should have won both of them. They were favored in both of them. There's a chance Miami's 12-0 right now, but they're not. They're 10-2. They're on the outside looking in. And, they're going to need some help. They're going to need some magic. We'll see what happens with Miami, but I'm very intrigued to see what the committee does. And we'll talk about that whole ordeal with Oklahoma, Alabama, Notre Dame when we get to them in a second. Number 11 is going to be BYU. Pretty straightforward. You got a game against Texas Tech. If you win, you're going to be in the playoffs. You win the Big 12, you got an automatic spot. BYU, with a win, they're in, and they're already out. So with a loss, I can't imagine they move up. I think with a loss, BYU obviously is out. So pretty simple here. Win, you're in. Lose, you're out. For BYU, we just saw this game earlier in November against Texas Tech. It was on the road, but Texas Tech dominated. BYU couldn't do anything offensively. Texas Tech, though, BYU showed some life, I guess, defensively. Texas Tech kicked a lot of field goals in that game. So maybe there's some hope there for BYU. But honestly, the fact that it was 29-7, maybe if it was close, maybe if it was a close loss, BYU could get them in the rematch, but it was just total domination. I think Texas Tech is far and away the best team in the Big 12, and I've been saying this all season. We'll get to this when we get to Texas Tech, but I think Texas Tech has a real shot to win a few playoff games. I think they're that good. I don't see Bear Bachmeier, true freshman. Maybe, he's been through a whole season, so he has experience now, but I just think Texas Tech is leagues ahead. I think Texas Tech wins. I think they actually cover. They're favored by 12.5. I think Texas Tech covers. I got 30-17. Technically, it's closer. I think BYU probably scores more than 7. Can't imagine that, but I assume Texas Tech probably also at least scores a similar amount. Maybe it's 28-17. But then again, BYU didn't show anything offensively against Texas Tech the first time around. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do much the second time around. Like I said, I think they'd probably get more. Maybe it's closer just because it's a conference championship game. But I'm having them losing by 13, and Texas Tech would be covering in that scenario. They're favored by 12.5. I just can't pick against that. I got to go Texas Tech. I think they're legitimately a contender. I think that's how good they are. Alabama's going to be my number 10. Now, the committee makes the very intriguing decision, moving Alabama ahead of Notre Dame. I don't really understand that. at first glance, I was watching, I was like, is a road win against a 4-win? I believe Auburn had 4 wins, maybe they had 5, 4 or 5 win Auburn team, 27-20. They were like tied late in the fourth quarter. I know it's a rivalry game. I know it's the Iron Bowl. I expected this game to be close. I actually last week predicted Auburn to win against Alabama. I was not there. I kind of called my shot. I was saying, oh, there's always one of these big rivalry games produces an upset. There really wasn't this year, besides, like, I guess Texas beating Texas A&M. I didn't really see that one happening. I thought Auburn would beat Alabama just because Alabama is so one-dimensional, but they actually kind of got a run game going against Auburn. Jam Miller did end up getting injured. I think he's fine, though. Ty Simpson, though, like, he's gonna have to carry the load in the playoffs. I'd assume a conference title game loss against Georgia keeps them, like, I think they'll be fine just because they did move ahead of Notre Dame for the committee, and I think that's what the committee was trying to do. Like, with a loss to Georgia, I think the committee, like, at first glance, I'm like, how is Alabama ahead of Notre Dame? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I don't think Alabama did anything really this past week to jump Notre Dame. I think what the committee's doing is trying to cover their bases. Like, people are going to talk about, well, oh, Notre Dame now at 10, that's going to set up a potential Miami-Notre Dame decision for that last playoff spot, but for that last at-large bid. But I think what the committee's doing, they're putting Alabama at 9, so that way, if Georgia were to beat Alabama, then they could say, okay, Alabama lost a game, they dropped down 1, but we're not going to fault them too much. We're going to keep them in the playoffs. 10-3, still gets in. They're going to be the last team in. I think that's what the committee's doing, but like I said, I posed this for Miami. What if Alabama beats Georgia? Now, Georgia, you could say, and I think it's fair to say, you could say Kirby Smart may have an Alabama problem. I think he's, 1-5, 1-6 against Bama, and Kalen DeBoer is now 2-0 against Georgia. What if Alabama, I think there's a real chance Alabama could win this game. Like I said, Alabama's shown to kind of own Georgia recently, at least with Kirby Smart. Like, Alabama's really good against Georgia always, and the line makers, the odds say this. Like, Georgia's only favored by 2.5. Alabama went into Georgia and won earlier in the season. Maybe you could argue, and you definitely, this is the argument I'm going to make. I'll actually save that. I'll save that until I make my actual prediction. But Alabama went into Georgia and beat them. What's saying they can't do it again on a neutral site? Like, this is a very real possibility, folks. And if Alabama does win against Georgia, then all of a sudden you have to keep Alabama ahead of Notre Dame, and that still sets up that scenario for the committee where they have to decide between Notre Dame and Miami. I honestly would want Alabama to win just to see the reactions, because I'm assuming, I actually don't even know what the committee would do. Notre Dame or Miami. Like, I feel like you have to put Miami just because they have the head-to-head, but honestly, like, if those two teams played right now, I'd say Notre Dame's the better team. I'd say Notre Dame wins. So I would love Alabama to win this game against Georgia just for the committee to have to make that decision. Now, let's just suppose this. What if BYU wins the Big 12? I don't think Texas Tech drops all the way down here. And what if Alabama wins the SEC? Well, all of a sudden, like, you're gonna have to make a decision between Notre Dame, like Oklahoma. It's gonna get real weird really fast if BYU and Bama were to win. Like, it's gonna be Notre Dame, Oklahoma are gonna be like, one of them is gonna be left out. So that's gonna be really strange. That could be interesting. There's also, like, there's just so many possibilities. Like, what if it's like Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Miami for that spot? What if there's so many what ifs. What if BYU, like, it just gets crazy. I mean, it's all gonna play itself out. Let's predict the game here. And also, what if Alabama wins the SEC? How high do they get? They might end up as a top 4 seed if they win the SEC. The other thing is, what if Alabama loses to Georgia and BYU wins the Big 12? Does Alabama get left out of the playoff at 10-3 compared to a 10-2 Notre Dame, because you're gonna have to put BYU in? Or do they keep Alabama in and leave both Notre Dame and Miami out? Like, that could be interesting. I don't know what they do there. If BYU wins, Alabama loses, because you're going to have to put BYU in now. I'm assuming they don't drop Texas Tech all the way down here. Like, it's going to be one spot between Alabama, Notre Dame, in Miami. Like, what do you do with that scenario? So it's going to be crazy. Let's predict the game, though. I have Alabama at 10 personally. The committee has them at 9. I think, here's the thing. Georgia, I think Kirby Smart needs to win this game, obviously. Like, he needs to show people that they don't have an Alabama problem. It's very hard to beat a team twice. It's very hard to beat it's even harder to beat a good team twice. And I think the biggest argument, these two teams were playing so differently when they played. This was so long ago. Like, that Georgia win for Alabama really started their stretch. They somehow lost that game to Oklahoma. There's a chance they probably should have won that game. They outgained them. They outplayed them, in my opinion. Oklahoma just found a way to win to keep their hopes alive. And good for Oklahoma because they're pretty much in the playoffs now, like locked in. With this though, like, Georgia's been playing so much better. I know they just struggled against Georgia Tech, but it's a rivalry game. I'm not gonna think too much of that, honestly. And same thing, you can say the same thing with Alabama. Like, they struggled with Auburn. Not to mention, the past 5 weeks, Alabama struggled against South Carolina, struggled against LSU, lost to Oklahoma, and struggled with Auburn. And Georgia the past 5 weeks, it's kind of been the exact opposite. Georgia's been really good besides this week against Georgia Tech. I think Georgia does win. I think they finally beat Alabama. If they do lose this game, like, you have to admit, Georgia has an Alabama problem. If Georgia were to lose this game, it's kind of the same thing that you could have said about Ohio State with Michigan the past few years. Obviously, Ohio State suffered the brutal loss last year to Michigan. And if Alabama were to beat Georgia for a second time in the same season, you'd have to say that same thing there. But I think Georgia wins. I think they win the SEC for the second year in a row. And I think I just think they're the more complete, better team. I think they're going to be able to run the ball against this Alabama defense. And still, it's the same thing. Alabama just can't run the ball. And I think that's going to be their demise. I've been saying that all season. I think Georgia does win the SEC. I got 27-24. Oklahoma's going to be my number 9. The committee has them at 8. I'm going to go at 9, though. Like, they just continue to not look impressive to me. I know recently they picked up a road win against Tennessee, road win against Alabama, knocking Tennessee out of the playoffs, by the way, and keeping their season alive with the win against Alabama. But the past 2 weeks, they haven't really looked good. Missouri and LSU both putting up only 17 points. That is Oklahoma. Now, they're 10-2. They're going to get in. Now, if you're Texas, the only hope you have is, well, what if, Texas, like I said, Miami's already ahead of them, so there's no way this is possible. I was going to say, what if Texas gets into somehow, some way, a direct comparison with Oklahoma, but Notre Dame's in between them. They don't play a game. Miami's in between them. They don't play a game, so that's not going to happen. I think it's an interesting point. If you're Texas, though, like, I guess that's interesting, but Texas doesn't really have a chance, in my opinion, folks. But yeah, Oklahoma, if you told an Oklahoma fan they were going to finish the season 10-2, people were expecting this team to go like 6-6. Coming into the season, they had like the hardest schedule. The fact they finished 10-2 is insane. But honestly, I was talking about this with somebody earlier today. Like, I was thinking to myself, Oklahoma's not like really that good, in my opinion. Like, I know their defense is it is one of the best in the country, probably like top 3, honestly, maybe top 2. Like, their D-line is ridiculous. Their defense in general is ridiculous. But their offense, man. Notre, ever since he's come back from the hand injury, has not looked the same. Since the hand injury, the most points they put up is 33 to Tennessee, but every other game, it's been 6 points to Texas, 26 to South Carolina, 26 to Ole Miss, 23 to Alabama, 17 to Missouri, 17 to LSU. It seems like it's getting worse and worse every week. Like, against LSU, they probably should have lost. They just had a bunch of big plays offensively. They couldn't drive the ball. They can't run the ball. Notre threw 3 picks. Like, I think Oklahoma's defense is going to be capable enough to keep them in their playoff game, but I don't see them winning with the problems offensively, in all honesty. So I'm going to drop Oklahoma just because of that. I think Notre Dame is better. Like, the fact they have probably the 2 best running backs in the country in Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. Now, Jeremiah Love did get a little banged up. I'd assume he's healthy, but this was the story last season. He was banged up going into the playoffs, and Notre Dame ended up making the national championship game, even as a 7 seed, even with Jeremiah Love a little banged up anyway. I think Notre Dame's going to be just fine. They're 10-2. Now, the committee put them at 10, which is very interesting because if they end up getting into a direct comparison with Miami, I don't really know what happens. But Notre Dame was very close with Miami in that game. They are a botched extra point away from potentially beating Texas A&M, and if they were 11-1, nobody would even be considering Notre Dame missing the playoffs. I think Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman. Like, I can't even say they should get in. In my opinion, they should be 8. I think they should be ahead of Oklahoma and Alabama. I know both those teams probably, well, Oklahoma and Alabama both do have better resumes than Notre Dame. But in all honesty, like, I just see less flaws with Notre Dame. There's still definitely flaws for sure. But, like, Oklahoma and Alabama just have clear flaws to me. I think Notre Dame is better. But the committee clearly doesn't, because the committee has Notre Dame behind these two teams. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. They don't play a game here, so we'll see what ends up happening. It's going to depend on what happens around them. Ole Miss, I'm going to put at 7. I'm not going to drop them. I'm not going to raise them, obviously. But I'm not going to drop them. They did take care of business against Mississippi State, but the big story here, Lane Kiffin leaves for LSU. How does that affect Ole Miss? I thought about dropping them. I really did, but honestly, I can't do that. Like, yeah, I know the committee raised them. I ended up just keeping them where they're at, so I technically did have a team jump them, but I don't know, man. It's hard for me to drop them. Like, they're 11-1. They still have all the same players. I know they don't have their play caller, and he was just a huge part of their success. Obviously, that's clear. That's why LSU paid him the amount they did. Now, Ole Miss is a 6th seed right now in the committee's rankings. I don't think I would agree. I think I'd still put A&M ahead of them, even with A&M just losing. Both Ole Miss and A&M do just barely miss out on the playoffs. It's or on the SEC championship game. It's kind of crazy that they put A&M behind Ole Miss. To me, that was actually honestly kind of shocking. But they did so, and I'd assume that stays. Maybe like it's crazy to me because this is the committee that left out Florida State, 13-0 Florida State after Jordan Travis goes down. I think it's obviously not the same thing because he's not a player, but Lane Kiffin has so much of an impact on this Ole Miss team, so I'm surprised they didn't punish them at all. I'm actually kind of glad they didn't. Maybe they learned their lesson with the Florida State and the uproar that people brought to them after them leaving them out of the playoffs at 13-0, but yeah, it's just such a big part. Like, Ole Miss is going to be in the playoffs. I just like losing their play caller. I don't know how far they can go. Maybe, like, honestly, they probably still win their first round game. It's going to be against the 11 seed if they stay as the 6 seed, which I'd assume they do, unless Alabama wins the SEC. Like, Ole Miss probably stays at 6. Maybe they go down to 7. If Ole Miss does go to 7, I have them at 7. If Ole Miss goes to 7 for the committee, they're going to have to play, like, potentially Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Alabama, maybe Miami if they sink in there. Like, I think all those teams could beat Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin. Maybe they don't. Like, Ole Miss is still a really good team either way. That just sucks. And the fact that Lane Kiffin did that to him, it's hard to like the guy now. I'm just being honest. Like, it is. It's hard to like him after he did that to Ole Miss. I understand they paid him so much. Like, you're gonna get better recruits, but this is Lane Kiffin's best team he's ever had. I feel like you just got to write it out with your guys, man. It sucks. I'm going to put Ole Miss at 7 here, though. I feel like you guys, if you're listening to this, everybody's talking about Lane Kiffin, so we're just going to move on. I'm going to put A&M ahead of Ole Miss still. Like, they went 11-0 until this Texas game. It's a rivalry game on the road. Texas is still a really good team. Texas was the preseason number 1, guys. Like, Texas is a really good team. I know they're 9-3. I know they have 3 losses, but still, Texas is a really good team. A&M still has the road win against Notre Dame. They still have some other really solid SEC wins. Like, I know their SEC schedule kind of sucks. They don't really have a good SEC win. Their best SEC win is probably that road win over Missouri. Maybe it's the road win against LSU just because at the time LSU was ranked. But, like, A&M kind of looks, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to think about A&M. I feel like I've been saying that ever since that South Carolina game. They really just haven't looked the same to me. I still think if A&M's on their game and playing well, they're one of the best teams in the country, like potentially top 3 best team in the country when they're playing well. But recently they haven't been, and I worry about that for them coming into the playoffs. They do get some time to reset, which I think will help them. But the committee has them at 7, which would give them a matchup against the 10 seed in the first round, which, like I said, sounds like it's going to be probably Bama or Notre Dame. And I don't know if I like their chances. I think they could probably beat Bama, but against Notre Dame, that would be a tough one. A rematch? I don't know. A&M, though, they're in the playoffs. They're 11-1. There's no need to worry. It's just a matter of who's the matchup is for them. And I'm so surprised they kept Ole Miss ahead of A&M. That is very interesting to me. Me personally, I'm keeping A&M ahead. And if A&M was the 6th seed, they would be playing either the ACC champ or Tulane or James Madison. Like, I'd much rather play that than the 10 seed. So that's actually really big that the committee did end up doing that. Number 5 is going to be Texas Tech for me. Like I've been saying all year, this is not just a good team for the Big 12. This is a legitimately good team. Their only losses to on the road against a really good Arizona State team, a really solid Arizona State team, who was preseason like top 15, I want to say, at least top 20, with their backup quarterback. And they maybe should have won that game still. Like, Texas Tech is a really good team. They have one of the best defenses in the country. Chris Rodriguez, their linebacker, is like, him and Arvell Reese are like 1A, 1B for best linebacker in the country. I'd give it to Arvell Reese, but he is that good. Their D-line is one of the best in the country. Baron Morton's been amazing. As long as he stays healthy, this Texas Tech team, I think, is poised to go on a run. This is a really good team. They just extended their coach, and I think they continue to roll. I think they blow out, maybe not blow out, maybe they. I just feel like they pull away late against BYU. They blew them out. We saw a few weeks back, and I kind of see the same kind of thing happening. Like, Texas Tech favored by 12.5. I don't think they lose that game. Even if they do lose, they should still be in the playoffs at 11-2. The committee tries to not drop teams who lose their conference championship game too much. So if Texas Tech were to lose this game, do we think they drop like 7 spots? I don't see it. So I think Texas Tech should be safely in no matter what. And I think deservingly so. 4 is where I'm going to put Oregon. I'm actually going to jump Oregon ahead of Texas Tech. They're going to move up 2 spots for me. Look at this November schedule. They went on the road to Iowa, won that game. They blew out Minnesota. They really handled USC, and they really handled Washington on the road. Big rivalry game. Dale Lanning, people were kind of saying he had a Washington problem, and he kind of shut that up. They're 11-1. Their only loss is to Indiana, who's undefeated. Oregon, people are forgetting about them. I've been saying that all season, but this is a really good team, really talented, really sound everywhere on the field. They can run the ball really well. They have playmakers on the outside. Dante Moore's been really solid, and their defense and their lines of scrimmage are really solid. I think Dale Lanning is one of the best coaches in the country. I think Oregon at 11-1 is going to be a very nightmare matchup. They're the 5 seed right now. If I'm an Oregon fan, I'm thrilled about that, because if you're an Oregon fan, I'd assume the top 4 stays put. Like Ohio State, Indiana, the loser's probably still in the top 4, to be honest. Georgia, if Georgia and Texas Tech take care of their business, Oregon will be that 5 seed. They're going to have to play the weakest bye team unless it's Ohio State, Indiana. Then that could be tough for them. If Oregon got either of those teams, that would be very interesting. If Indiana or Ohio State does drop all the way to 4, which could potentially happen. Which honestly, that actually might happen. If that were to happen, that would be very interesting. Oregon could potentially get one of those teams. Either one would be very interesting. Oregon would potentially get revenge against Indiana for their loss earlier this season, or their loss to Ohio State in the playoffs last year. If Ohio State loses, or if Indiana loses, I'd probably expect either of them to drop to 4. Maybe if Ohio State lost, they don't. Like, if Ohio State loses, Indiana probably moves up to 1. I'd say Georgia's probably 2, and then Ohio State's probably 3. If Indiana loses, though, I think there's a chance they could be bumped behind Texas Tech. But I'd assume Oregon is essentially locked into this 5 seed unless BYU or Bama does end up winning. Then Oregon could potentially jump into one of those top 4 seeds as a bye team, which I think would be very interesting. But Oregon, even as the 5 seed, they're going to play the weakest conference champion, which could potentially be James Madison. Could potentially be Tulane. I think that's very favorable. So yeah, Oregon's in a really good spot right now. They're my number 4, by the way, not number 5. Georgia, I was giving them so much praise. I was saying they're the best team in the SEC, even better than A&M, even though I had A&M ranked ahead just because they were undefeated. I still do think Georgia is the best team in the SEC. I gave my reasons as to why I think they will win. It's so hard to beat a team twice. It's even harder to beat a good team twice. And Georgia, I do believe, is a good team. They've been playing a lot better ball as of recently. I think Alabama's kind of trending downwards, and Georgia's kind of trending upwards. I'm not going to take too much from this Georgia Tech game. I know 16 points, not great. But it's a rivalry game. These things happen. I'm really not worried at all. Gunnar Stockton is just an absolute baller. He gets it done. And this team running the ball, I think they're going to run all over Alabama. I think Alabama's offense and Ty Simpson will be able to make enough plays to keep it close. But I think Georgia will get to Ty Simpson, maybe turn him over. I think that'll be the difference maker. I think Georgia gets it done 27-24. I think it's going to be a very close game. Game day is going to be here. It's going to be electric. SEC championship, always going to be exciting. But I do think Georgia wins. And then we got the Big Ten championship. The last thing on the docket now, obviously, there's not much scenarios here, right? Indiana, Ohio State, the last two undefeated teams in the country going head-to-head in Indianapolis. Essentially a home game for Indiana, but Ohio State fans are going to travel very well. They've got the biggest fan base in the country, and Ohio State fans are going to be here. It's not that far from Columbus, Indianapolis. It's like 3 hours. So Ohio State fans will be there, I promise. Everyone who's saying this is kind of a home game for Indiana, I don't know if I'd say that. Like Ohio State fans are going to be here. It's interesting to me that the line is as low as it is. That's just showing a lot of respect to Indiana. This line, only OSU -4. It actually, I want to say it opened at 4.5. So it actually opened at 5.5. So money's coming in on Indiana. Very interesting there. I think for good reason. Indiana's a really good team. We'll go ahead. I didn't put my prediction here because I wanted to save it. Ohio State beats Michigan. They finally get their streak to go in there, dominate them. Wasn't even close. Let's predict the Big Ten championship game now because we kind of already touched on this with the Michigan when we talked about Michigan. With Ohio State, you look at Julian Sain. He had the highest completion percentage in regular season college football history. He broke that mark. Ohio State got the run game going, which has kind of been their one little weakness they've had all season. They got the run game going with Bo Jackson. Their offensive line and defensive line just dominated at the lines of scrimmage. Now, Indiana is much better at the lines of scrimmage. That's one of their strengths. Indiana can run the ball very well. They have the potential Heisman winner in Fernando Mendoza. By the way, if the stakes weren't enough for the number one seed in the playoffs, for the Big Ten championship game, to become the only undefeated team left, if the stakes were high enough, these are the two Heisman frontrunners. So the winner of this game likely wins the Heisman. Like, everything is on the line here. It's going to be ridiculous. But anyways, Ohio State, I think these two teams really are clearly the two best teams in the country right now for me. I think when you look at Indiana, they've had kind of one struggle game against Penn State. I don't know if you can say Ohio State's had a struggle game. Maybe it's their first game, maybe. But Texas is a top 15 team, and Ohio State didn't really give Sain that much to do. Obviously, it was his first start ever. Maybe Ohio State's struggle game was against Washington. I don't know. They only gave up 6 points against Washington. Maybe it was against Michigan just because they started out trailing 6-0. By the way, I love that happened because Ohio State finally had to play from behind. That was their biggest deficit they faced all season. They had to overcome some adversity. Go in their rivalry game. They haven't won in 6 years. Sain threw a pick on his second throw of the game. There was a little bit of worry there, but their defense held strong. Their team held strong. Sain just went out there and absolutely balled. And I feel like that's the difference maker. I think Ohio State really has no weaknesses right now, which is insane to say. They won the national championship last year, and they probably are better. I think they are better. Indiana had that struggle game against Penn State. There's a chance they could have lost that game. Fernando Mendoza is great. Their run game is great. Their defense is probably top 3 in the country up there behind Ohio State. Maybe they're number 2. Maybe it's Oklahoma. I don't know. Honestly, Indiana's probably number 2. Their defense is so good. Indiana has weapons, Elijah Surratt, but I just feel like Ohio State has the talent advantage, man. And I feel like late in the game, that's just going to prevail. The depth, the conditioning, the coaching. Kurt Cignetti's a great coach, but I just feel like all these little things for Ohio State that they have the advantage on, they're going to slowly add up as the game goes on, and I think Ohio State pulls away late. I'm going 27-20. I think it's going to be a great game. This is not going to be a blowout whatsoever. It's going to be close the whole way through, I promise. If Ohio State goes in and blows this game, handles Indiana, shuts them down, which maybe they do. I feel like this has got to be the game. Somebody scores more than 16 against this defense. If it's anyone to do, it's going to be Indiana. If Indiana can't keep this one close, Ohio State may just run through the playoffs again and just go back to back and be unstoppable, which I would love nothing more as an Ohio State fan, I promise. But I do think it's going to be a very close game. The fact that the money's coming in on Indiana, I'm telling you, it's going to be a great game. I do think Ohio State wins, though. I got 27-20, but that's going to do it for the Week 15 College Football Top 25 Rankings, the final video of this. We're still going to try to get college football every Tuesday. We're going to have our playoff predictions here coming up very soon. This is the last week before we get the playoff rankings. It's going to be insane. I'm actually thinking about live streaming the selection show. We'll see. Let me know if you guys would like that. But that's going to do it. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you're new. We're doing college basketball every Monday. Make sure you check out that video yesterday. Obviously, college football every Tuesday, NFL on Wednesdays, NBA on Thursdays. The whole, we got a lot going on, so make sure you subscribe, turn on the noties. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys tomorrow with another NFL weekly prediction, game prediction video.